Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And Jason.
Hello, everyone.
Today we got a very special guest with us. So,
he's definitely special.
Okay, well, I don't know what, come on now.
Golly, Stoney,
He's definitely special.
that's a loaded phrase.
Do you want to introduce your friend to the people?
I don't know if we're friends anymore.
This is my brother from another mother, T-Rex or William. I like to call him T-Rex.
Yes, indeed. And it's a pleasure being here. It's the T-Rex thing is funny. No association to T-Rex arms. Dude, keep doing your thing. It's awesome. Right. But, I'm a small arms gun dealer, so that's what
I called him up one day and I says, "Hey man, I got this nickname for you." And his wife was, I guess, on speakerphone or could hear it, and he's like, "Oh, okay. What are you going to start calling me?" And I said, "I'm going to start calling you T-Rex." And he said, "Why would you call me T-Rex?" And I says, "Because you're my small arms dealer." And his wife is like, "Oh, we're getting T-shirts that say that."
So excited, so excited. But and I'm all just add to yes, brother. You and your significant other are very, very special to us. And
you can say Miranda on here.
I will say Miranda. I will not say Miranda rights. But which I think is cool. But we love you guys, and it's an honor to be here with you guys today, and it's a pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you.
And thank you.
So I guess to kind of start off, I know we have like an overarching topic we're going to be talking about today, but before we kind of get into that, just tell me a bit about yourself as far as like what's your background, your history, kind of, what leading you up to today, sort of kind of, who you are and that kind of stuff.
So my name is William.
Okay.
I was born and raised in the southern part of the United States, and I'm a transplant to the great state of Louisiana. I've been here for 24 years. My background is both military and law enforcement. I'm retired Army. Was in the United States Army for 28 years.
Cool. There you
go. Had a good time with that, and then got into law enforcement. I'm post-certified and did work both in Georgia and in the great state of Louisiana. And now I'm T-Rex.
There you go.
Small arms
Love
dealer.
That. Okay.
And I've been doing that for the past 4 years. So that's me. I've got I'm married. Got 4 kids.
There you go.
And living the dream here in Sportsman's Paradise.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Love your wife too. She's awesome. Y'all are a good pair.
She is. She's super cool. She's from California.
There you go.
We still love her.
Which is quite interesting. Yes. And I will tell you, you need to meet her because the relationship is super cool because she's from Northern California. Okay. And I grew up in Georgia, and that's where I'm from. And we'll always call home. But our two states are very similar. We're outdoors people. We like to overland and backcountry and stuff like that. And when you grow up in the South and never have the opportunity to go out west and all that, and then you finally do, especially as a grown man. Yeah. And you're taken aback, when you see how beautiful California is, with the mountains and everything. As a child, I grew up, my mother in the Northeast Georgia mountains, and so it's very similar. So, our relationship is based on, being outdoor and the love for outdoors and everything that, God's given us and
just on different coasts.
Yeah. And, super, super cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, this show got kind of started, as T-Rex said, he is my small arms dealer. And, I appreciate and am honored that he wrote that blank check for 28 years to America as a soldier, and I just appreciate everything he's done for us. But I sent him a picture one day that said 140 House Democrats demand the ability to put veterans on the NICS ban list, regardless of their criminal history, claiming that it's for their own protection.
you do.
And I asked him, is this just the first step in a gun grab?
You did ask that question, and I have for a long time. I've worked with veterans. I've got a lot of brothers and sisters that we've been through a lot of things, and a lot of things includes being away from your family. It's not just combat, and dealing with some of the issues that we deal with, and that type of article that comes out, it does make you wonder, hey, is this a gun grab? And I've got a lot of brothers and sisters that are out there that will tell you it's a gun grab. I work very closely with an organization, an association with the VA. It's called the Armory Project. And
you and I've discussed that. Yep.
Yeah, we have. And part of that, and really what that program is an ability for veterans to take their firearms and have a place to store them in a safe environment to help protect them and their family as they're dealing with some of the things they're doing. That does not mean that bad things are going to happen, and just because veterans, have the things that we go through or are going through doesn't mean that we should not be in possession of firearms.
Okay.
A firearm is a tool,
right?
There are many things that are out there, knives, cars, your hands. I mean, there's a lot of things that are tools. That is one tool. And according to our Constitution, we as a nation, that includes veterans, have the right to bear arms. And, when you categorize or subcategorize people, in this case, veterans, who have in a 1 percentile process, raising their right hand and saying, I'm going to serve my country. We all know what goes along with that. Yep. It's the same thing in law enforcement. You know what the possibilities are. Okay.
That's that blank check. That's the blank check that you the law enforcement and the military.
Absolutely.
You're basically signing a blank check to your country, the citizens of that country.
Absolutely.
To protect and serve them.
And in the men and women that are and will do that, are going to see things and do things, that are going to have an effect on them, for a very long time. And that doesn't mean that they are broken. There is a person online who influenced me greatly when it comes to the term unbroken. His name is Matt Best.
Okay.
If you're familiar with Black Rifle Coffee, I don't want to go out and throw a shout out to them, but they are included in that process. And Matt did a video that really touched my heart. And I'm a tattoo guy. I love ink. And in the video, and it just to paraphrase it, his friend passes away. Okay. But in the words that are being said in that video as it goes through, his friend talks about being unbroken. And I have the word unbroken tattooed on my wrist to remind me every day, to go along with the black band that is on my wrist every single day, to remind me of what can happen with veterans, and dealing with some of the things that we have to deal with. And for the government or anyone to say that veterans cannot or should not be in possession of a firearm is absolutely ridiculous. And to specifically categorize veterans, to alienate them, to alienate us, is wrong. You know, so
it feels like they're trying to find a solution to the problem that isn't actually the problem. I feel like there's like I understand where the idea would come from if you're like, oh, if like in the past there has been, I think, people in some sort of military standing in some capacity that have done some terrible things. But at that point, I don't think that taking away all the guns from every veteran is the answer. I feel like the shift should be more like, how can we help out, those people in their mental state and their emotional state, that sort of situation. But that's not the thing that's going to start grabbing people's attention. Obviously, it hasn't been for the past.
Well, I think we have to look at it in a broader sense.
Right.
Sure, this is just one little thing that they're throwing out there with the red flag laws, with so many different things that they're just trying to get something to stick.
Right.
And when you look at the red flag laws, that anybody now can pick up the phone and call a law enforcement agency and say, I'm scared that this person is going to do something, or scared they're going to do something to themselves, and they can come in and confiscate your weapons now.
Yeah. And
this is kind of just along that vein, but they're attacking the veterans.
Right.
They're attacking people. And what's really funny about this, and I hate the word funny, maybe I need to find a better word, but the very people that send those veterans off to fight are generally not the ones that went to war themselves.
It's always been the case.
And they don't, now we're going to punish you for doing what we ask you to do, and we're going to make you feel like less of a person, on top of maybe feeling like less of a person for some of the things, like you said, you saw and had to do. Mm-hmm. So you have all these battles, and we're gonna compound it.
Well, I think there needs to be some historical backdrop to this whole issue. This goes back to the Brady Bill.
Mm-hmm.
This is when all this started. Yep. And it basically empowered the VA to be able to, if a recipient has been ruled in essence incompetent, they can't manage their affairs, they can't manage their money, or whatever the case may be, then they are authorized to submit that name to the FBI to be included on the list. So this practice has been going on now for over 20-something years. This is not something new that's been going on. Now, the other side would say that the high percentage of veterans that are doing harm to themselves, and a lot of time it involves a handgun. That was the kind of the justification of doing this. Unfortunately, what should have happened, they should have not have left the decision-making in the hands of a bureaucrat. Because right now, the veteran that might be impacted by such a decision, right now, their only option is to appeal to the VA, which is the same entity that basically said you're incompetent because you need someone to basically cash your checks. Because that's literally what it can come down to. Mm-hmm. Now, no gun law, no policy is perfect.
Right.
We all know what the intent is. Unfortunately, how that's played out in real life, where I would call how the rubber meets the road.
Right.
You can make this apply to a lot of things that lawmakers, I think, with good intentions, don't realize how things kind of play out in the real world. And you can apply that to a lot of different laws.
Well, see, I love you like a brother, but I'll disagree with you. I don't believe the good intentions are there. I think it is a very specific gun grab by people who want control, knowing that if we can take the guns out of the veterans' hands, who know how to use them, who also have the ability to teach others how to use them and train a well-regulated militia, which is what my Second Amendment has for me, then there's less resistance when they want to come and take everybody else's gun. So I don't believe there is good intention.
Well,
I believe these are people that are liberals that are willing to force their views on us and don't want us to be able to do anything about it.
I mean, I have no proof of at the time in 1993 is when the Brady bill passed. And it was passed by Congress. So this was done by Congress. This wasn't some court ruling this or some unelected bureaucrat that made this change. Mm-hmm. This was our lawmakers with a lot of intense political pressure at the time. And if I recall right, in 1993, the United States was going through a pretty significant crime wave. And that's kind of what prompted that. And I believe the urging of, at the time, the Brady, who was, I believe, involved in the Reagan assassination. And he had gotten involved in with trying to control, some gun violence and stuff like that. I think what should have happened even back then, where I think the fault lies, I don't believe anybody should have their rights taken away without due process. Mm-hmm. I think that's fundamentally un-American. And I think that was the problem with this provision of the Brady bill when it passed, was not thinking that here we're taking away rights of Americans without, in essence, their day in court. So I believe
the Brady bill was an opportunistic way to try to take something. We were passionate about crime. But we're not dealing with the crime. That's like saying we want to stop drunk driving, so we're going to stop everybody's ability to drive.
So do you believe because part of the Brady bill was the creation of the background check system?
Yes.
When you purchase it, are you saying that we shouldn't have a background check on any gun?
I have no problem with the background check.
Well, that's okay.
But then also what you have to do is you have to, like they do, you have, how many days is it? Three. 3 days. Okay. Because now what they're trying to do is they're trying to change that to where you don't have to do it in 3 days. Now the FBI can take 10 years to do it. See, so where the intent is, I think it's just an opportunistic way to take advantage of a situation and take advantage of what the American people are thinking and feeling to try to take everybody's guns. And I know I'm hard line on this, and I really don't care.
I'm kind of reluctant to go there. There's this. I do believe that there are some people out there that would love to see America basically become what Europe is when it comes to guns.
Yep.
Now, to make it so restrictive that it's almost impossible. I do not believe that's ever really possible in this country. I mean, I think the latest stats I saw on the number of guns that are out there in the United States is over 150 to 200 million firearms. I don't believe we're going to have guns be taken away. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm against anything to make something so expensive that it makes it impossible for the average person to own.
Well, that's just another way to control it. Okay,
well, it is.
They wanted the ammo tax. Okay, we can't stop you from having a gun, so what we're going to do is we're going to have 1,000% tax on your ammo.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, in essence, for all intents and purposes, you're making it so cost prohibitive that the average person is not going to be able to.
How you control it?
It goes back. To the tax stamp.
Right.
Okay. On a Class 3 item, you buy a suppressor. Okay, it's $200. It's always been $200, and the reason for that, and we discussed this the other day. The reason for that was to prohibit people of color and people who were of low income to not be able to purchase firearms.
Right.
That is to stop that
still
process.
a control.
And it is still today the same amount of money in the same process that was initiated.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me there's not something wrong with that.
Well, but they
absolutely
got,
is.
And that goes down a rabbit hole. However, it did get passed.
It did get passed, but back, I believe it was in the 30s.
Yes.
I believe when all that was passed, I believe it was in 34 or 36. I think it was the Gun Control Act 1936. But yeah, because there was resistance to it then. So what they did was put that into the revenue.
Yes.
That's how it ended up there
Mm-hmm.
as a tax issue.
Yeah, but you see, up until 1936, guess what the law stated in America? If you were a landowner, you had to own a gun.
Right.
Okay. If you owned land, you were required by law to have a gun. That was to protect your family. That was to, I mean, really? So what?
And so now today there's a gentleman that's on trial for murder for shooting someone who came onto his property out west. Why? I mean, we just said that it was you had to have a gun if you owned land. And this is an older gentleman. And I don't know all the circumstances behind all of that, so I don't want to delve too deep into it. But it's the same thing. God's protecting his homestead, and now he's fighting a murder charge. So, it does present problems, and there are a lot of people. And if we talk about the Brady Bill, and it's specifically when you're talking about in the purchasing of firearms, the necessity there, and I agree with the Brady Bill. It provides the federal government to make sure that the individual who is requesting that background check, to one, be that individual, and two, to make sure that they have got a clean background. I mean, that's what that is
100%
for.
agree with that.
It doesn't cost anything other than paying their salaries, to check on the backside and on the FBI side. But it doesn't. If you come in and you purchase a firearm from me, we run a background check on you. I don't charge you to run that background check. Right. So it's the charge is time. If you've got a clean background, you get to proceed. You walk out with the gun the same day. If you get a delay, which is a Brady delay, it states on the 4473, which is the background check request form, that there is a minimum of 3 days, 3 business days, doesn't include weekends and holidays.
Right.
Okay. Just because you get a delay today doesn't mean, and that delay date is, in three days or whatever when it comes back, doesn't mean that it's not going to come back tomorrow. It could come back tomorrow, right? So we get a lot of people that will come in on a delay the next day, and then there are people who get denied. And, I will tell you, when they get denied, in most cases, they're not surprised. They're not angry. They know what's up.
Right.
And, you can appeal that process, okay?
Yep.
But there are a lot of people that don't appeal it because they know that they are a convicted felon and cannot be in possession of a firearm. To me, that's not a gun grab. That is protecting the United States. And laws are changing in the states as well. Yes.
Yes, they are.
We talk about on the federal side, but you're also seeing states, who are not standing with that and creating their own laws. We have just had constitutional carry passed where everybody's going to be able to, legally carry a firearm without, a concealed carry permit, which requires a background check, and training.
Which I've gone on record. I'm against that whole constitutional carry. I understand people saying, well, it's my right to carry a gun. I'm also a realist that there are a lot of people out there that shouldn't be carrying a gun.
Yes.
And the ones that are, none of them are going through any sort of training. And, I've talked to friends of mine about this, like, well, you having to go get that permit and, I said, how often do you go and actually train with your gun?
Right.
You don't, probably.
Most people don't.
You don't.
You don't. And that's the number one thing you need is training. And in those classes, you not only get training on that firearm, but you also get the law.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know what the law is.
Right.
And I had a conversation with a gentleman yesterday. You know, in the conversation was about how just because you're going to constitutional carry, where can I go? Where can I not go?
Right.
When that legislation was passed, okay, and I ride the fence on it. You know, I'm not going to make any bones about it. I believe the Constitution, you know, says that we can have firearms. We can have firearms. By God, we're going to have firearms.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side of that, I also believe you need training. You've got to have training.
Yes.
Okay, and in part of that training, when you go and you get your concealed carry permit, is the law. And knowing when and where you can carry that firearm and all of those things makes it very clear as to what you can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
But just to arbitrarily say, hey, Stone, you can carry a firearm and then go about your business and never pick that thing up and have any training, and something happens, you're going to end up on the bad side of things.
Right.
You've got to have training. So
Mm-hmm.
I think at a minimum, at least it controls, you know, it at least makes it where, because I didn't find the fee to be very cost prohibitive for someone if they wanted a permit
no.
to go get it. It's not like you're having to fork out a ton of money to do this. I thought at a minimum, the current system worked just fine. And that's where I will disagree with my more ardent Second Amendment friends. I'm considering my background and where I came from and what I had to do
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
to do those things. I think at a minimum, asking someone once a year to go and actually train and learn how to handle a firearm properly and to be able to truly use that gun
Mm-hmm.
if a situation presented itself, because we all know the statistics are all there. How many people get shot with their own gun, taken by the
yeah.
That's right.
assailant
That's
because
right.
they can't do what they have to do because mentally they have not prepared themselves.
Well, you have to know
to take those steps.
You're right. You have to know so many things. You have to know what your weapon is capable of, and you have to know what you're capable of.
Well, we also have several instances in our own community where law enforcement officers have had their own firearm taken away from them and used
Against them.
against them as well. You know, so the training has to be there, and I don't care what anybody's background is; it's a perishable skill.
Yes, it is.
You know, and based on muscle memory, and you know, you have to take it to the next level of, you know, besides just purchasing it and owning it. That's super cool. The Constitution says we can have it. That's awesome, and I'm all for that. But if you're not training and knowing what the laws are, and training's not just, it doesn't just consist of taking that firearm to the range and training with it. It's also training your brain and knowing what the law is. You know, you know, we see a lot of stupid things when it comes to that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You have to, I mean, I tell people, you know, all the time, I said, you know, even things that seems to be on the surface very legit, very upfront, there's no question, there's still a lot you've still ultimately going to have to prove to a jury.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
And you never know how those things can go. So, you know, I just, the idea of how many people out there I know that already could care less about what the law said about carrying guns that are carrying guns. And now you've just carte blanche said, okay, everybody now, we can't even make an investigatory stop anymore because everybody has a right to carry a gun concealed. Doesn't matter. Who cares? You know, I just see a lot of problems with this, and I don't know what the long term consequences of that are.
And look, I might get some hate for this, from my brothers and sisters, and that's fine. Okay. We also in the state of Louisiana, if you're a veteran and you have veteran on your driver's license, you have the ability by law. Our former governor passes legislation that we can conceal carry in the state of Louisiana. Now, there's no reciprocity in any other state. Same thing as concealed carry. I will tell you, and we've talked about this too, the majority of people that I know that have been in the military have never seen a handgun in their time in the military. So to arbitrarily say, just because you're a veteran, you can conceal carry a handgun.
That was a good conversation too. I remember that one too. That was a long, good conversation.
Look, I don't believe that. Okay. And it goes back to training,
right?
Just because you were in the military, you initiated, an M4 carbine doesn't mean that, you had any time on a handgun. So, there is no training there. There is no knowledge there, to be able to go and do the right thing, with that firearm in open or concealed carry. I'm very appreciative of it. I really am. And I think that it's super cool for us as veterans, but there has to be training, and you can't just say, oh, you were in the military, so, you automatically know how to use a handgun. That is absolutely not the case.
But see, here's my problem with it. Okay. So we just passed constitutional carry, which means that basically anybody can carry concealed now, right?
You don't need a permit anymore.
So magically, when that happened, criminals can start carrying their weapons concealed now, right? Because they weren't doing that until this point.
Right.
So, I'm sorry. So basically, who are you giving that right to?
I think
law-abiding citizens.
I bet
because the criminals are going to do it no matter what they want to do anyway, because they're following the laws, right? They're not.
They are, but I mean, no. And the thing is, and to go back to what you just said a minute ago, it has gotten so bad. Okay, that law-abiding citizens, everybody knows that Joe Bad Guy, is carrying guns, and they don't care about the law. If they cared about the law, they wouldn't be committing the crimes they're committing.
Exactly.
Okay, but it's gotten so bad that now you have law-abiding citizens that are actually breaking the law, willing to break the law to conceal carry, to be able to protect themselves and their family.
Right.
And
that's kind of my point.
What does that tell you? You have people who are in fear of their lives, of their well-being, and their family members, who are willing to do the wrong thing legally in order to save and protect.
Because those are the easy people to go after.
Those are called soft targets.
Okay, that's right. No, you're exactly right.
Are.
Because that criminal carrying his little Uzi or his whatever or his automatic Glock that he's changed, that's the hard target. Yeah. Okay, they don't want to go after them. That costs too much money to go after them, and there's no what's the benefit.
Right.
Okay, but oh my gosh, we got Joe Blow over here who was protecting his family, and now we can seize his assets, we can seize all his weapons, and now we have a case to go after more people like that.
Right.
And that's why I have a problem with this.
What, just talking about in general? Any
yes.
sort of impediments to gun ownership?
No, I believe you should have background investigation. I'm not opposed to a yearly training. I think it's a little far-fetched, but I think if you have a regular...
And it needs to be really a training.
A training, yes.
Because I've seen some of the
think about
training that
you have to think
people
about
go through, and they consider that training.
A lot of people may or may not know this, but Miranda and I are pistol instructors. We can teach concealed weapons classes. We don't give a normal class. We give everything that we are mandated by the government to give, plus a whole bunch. Yeah. I tell people before I give you that class, because you got to do so many people and there's a whole bunch of stuff. I want to sit down with a weapon. I lay out 10 or 12 weapons, and I say, okay, what are you going to do? Like, didn't we have a conversation with you? I think you wanted, Ian, you wanted to maybe
I
have
was,
a shotgun or something.
I was interested in potentially getting my
I'd
concealed
like
carry.
if we could go into that conversation here in a little bit with
Sure.
Ian too.
Sure.
But, okay, what fits your hand?
Right.
What are you going to be able to use? Are you going to carry it in a purse? You're going to carry it, in belt, out belt? All these things that you're not really thinking about when you go to buy your first gun. What's important? What's important?
There's so many different
there's
variables.
so many
so
things.
many different variables.
And I believe that Miranda and I have that opportunity to start you off in the right path. And there's, I'm 100% on training and background checks. Absolutely.
That's you. And
Exactly.
I would agree. That's you, and you do that. My question is what's others doing out there? Is there some standardized training?
Yes, it is standardized training when you get your concealed weapon, but I think it should go past that. There is a standardized what you have to.
There's so many hours, so many hours,
and
which is not.
They kind of tell you the blips of what you have to do. So
right, so that's what I'm saying is in the only training.
And the law is actually
the only
part
training
of it.
I'm familiar with is training I went through in my previous life. Okay, so I knew what I had to do.
Right.
The question is that what other people are doing?
I don't believe so.
And they're not, because I've talked to some people who have gone through training, and I sit there and go, really?
Yep.
That's all you did, and somehow that you're ready to go. If the situation, I know the limitations. They said, I think on an average, if I saw the latest statistics, that the police shoot about 10% better than the bad guys on average.
Okay.
10%. And that's what the training that they go through.
And that's annual training.
That's annual.
That's annual.
Now, some departments have gone to a quarterly based training, which is something I dealt with. And even then, that's not enough. It just isn't. You need to do a whole lot more. Now, the problem is you're dealing with cost of ammunition, because you start chewing up lots of rounds of ammunition, that can get quite pricey. And we all know that the price of ammunition goes up and down, and that can change.
It's going to change. The biggest thing that's going to change is availability. There's so much. I mean, we looked at a huge shortage during COVID.
Well, Health and Hospitals was buying 500 million rounds of ammo at a time. So, yeah, go figure that one out.
And that was to protect them.
Well, just FYI, talking about what we were talking about earlier with veterans. The Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act passed. It was actually voted on, and it was passed by. It was introduced with John Kennedy of Louisiana.
Good.
Yep.
It was a part of a $467.5 billion consolidated spending bill, and that was part of the whole thing. If you remember in the news about shutting the government down, and part of the provisions was fixing this thing that happened with the Brady bill. So at least now, it's not some bureaucrat that's determining whether a veteran would lose his Second Amendment rights. At least it would require a judge to make that call. So in essence, I'll get my day in court. So I'm kind of, I'm happy to see that it finally passed, but there are a lot of Democratic lawmakers who are urging the VA to find some workaround. This.
Yes, they are.
So,
and I get questions, on that as well with TAP. Okay, and I'm going to tell you that that is not a gun grab. All right, in the Armory project, it is not a gun grab. It is an ability to safely store those firearms.
Right.
Those veterans get them back. I think the key word in that article that you had sent me that kicked off this discussion is fiduciary. It states in there that if a veteran is required a fiduciary, then those firearms can be taken. That to me is where it gets ridiculous. Because if you have a fiduciary, someone who is named the person that is responsible to help you, okay, as a responsible, law-abiding citizen, why take the guns?
Right.
And I get safekeeping and all this kind of good stuff, but that's kind of where that article goes in saying that, if that veteran is deemed, and required to have a fiduciary, then they lose all of these rights. Okay. There was no timeline in that. There was no specifics at all in that article.
Right.
To be able to say, okay, at this point, this is when that would end.
Yeah.
And it was a very open-ended article, in my opinion.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's, as I said, I'm a firm believer that I think, and I will hold that they made these decisions based upon the statistics that came out with the number of veterans experiencing problems. And the statistics show they're about twice the chance of them doing harm to themselves than the general population. For whatever reason, and a lot of this started coming to light during the Obama presidency. Can you think about what was going on? You have a lot of soldiers coming back after Iraq, Afghanistan, that whole wave of coming back. And the amount of names that were being added to that list to go onto the database, there was almost like 26,000 a day of names were being added. So this issue became more and more, because as I said, this has been going on since 1993.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is nothing new.
And it goes back even further than that. If you talk about from the veterans' perspectives, I mean, we've been engaged in conflict, for a very long time, and we still have some of the finest men and women that have walked the face of this earth. Our World War II veterans are still alive. Mm-hmm. You look at what they went through. No difference than that. And World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Grenada. I mean, you can Panama, you can talk them all, and people that have been through those things. And there are a lot of things that are out there that the general public has no knowledge of that goes on a daily basis. Okay, mm-hmm. There's a lot more out there than people know.
We've been fighting wars using special forces now for years because it's become so politically, it's just not palatable to basically send general enlisted guys to these conflicts. So America is fighting a lot of wars with basically a handful of soldiers.
And
we
have
tired. Been for a
and
long
they're very
time.
Tired.
And that's not what special forces was designed for. Mm. It was not designed to go in and constantly be in perpetual conflict all the time. Look, we've talked about it before, the military-industrial complex. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We were warned about this back at the end of Eisenhower's presidency. There's money to be made in war. And unfortunately, the collateral damage is soldiers.
It is. And that's the thing. And we discussed this a couple weeks ago. War economically drives the country. That's how we make money. Mm-hmm. And we were in the Great Depression, when World War II kicked off. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, we're on the other side of it because it was not only with the imperial stuff that went on, there was a necessity for it, but what it did for America economically was huge in bringing us out of the Depression. And, those days are not over. There's still a lot of industrial complex, military industrial complex stuff still going on. And, we've got proxy wars going on There's a lot of other stuff going on too that just aren't making national news or local news, on a daily.
Ukraine.
But yes, but to be able to take, on the Special Forces side of the house, specifically as, trainers and advisors, that's where that started. And now these heroes are going over and having to do surgical stuff. And that's been going on for a long time. It didn't just start. It didn't just start. So, you've got all these men and women that are coming back. I'm going to tell you where the problem started was with each branch of service. In my military career, and my brother and sisters will vouch for this, you never spoke about anything being wrong. Part of that is super cool because once the fight's over, then you can collect yourself and deal with it and all that. You don't deal with it in the moment. But if you, after doing those things, you come back and if you're dealing with hardship and, it turns into a domestic violence situation or, other things that go on, the soldiers, the service members didn't have the ability to communicate that. There was no VA, or hospital administration type of program for any service member to go in and say, hey, I need to talk to somebody.
Right.
Because if you did that, you were gone. They were going to boot you out, and it wasn't until going into the late 90s, early 2000s really, is when it started being okay to do that because of these numbers that were coming out, of so many service members having problems. If we as a branch of service who is based on a foundation of family and taking care of each other, that's where it starts. It's just like on the street, or in our community. If we don't love and take care of each other, then we sure as hell can't go out and take care of other people in the community.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The military veterans, that is a family community. And that process of taking care of, veterans has been broken for a very, very long time.
I think probably because the way our country has been going about and fighting wars has fundamentally changed.
Yes.
I mean, at one time, and it's still the case, only Congress can declare war.
Yeah.
We got away from this really after World War II. We've been fighting in these
it's police actions
since Korea. Mm-hmm. And we're still fighting police actions, and they don't realize the damage psychologically that does to a human being.
Yeah.
To be constantly in a state that I don't know if this next step I'm going to catch the bullet. That plays on the minds of people. We're not designed to live that way.
No.
At all. I'm not designed to worry about every shadow that jumps out around the corner. Somebody's really wanting to kill me.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening to a lot of these guys and ladies that are in these conflicts, that you wonder why PTSD has gotten to the point where it is right now. And nobody wants to do anything about it because no one wants to stop going to war. Everybody wants to keep going to war around here. Because, just like we said, the economy runs on it. And it's a shame that we have gotten to a point now that we've lost our way to such an extent that that's the only way we know of is trying to make the economy go, is to go engage in conflict. We can't find a peaceful solution to any of these problems.
No, because peaceful solutions don't
make money.
They don't make dollar signs. Mm-hmm. I would tell you, we are not broken. I'm going to go back to what we talked about earlier. We are not broken. As veterans, we are not broken. We got things we got to deal with. A lot more than others.
Mm-hmm.
A lot that right now, as we're talking, are doing things and seeing bad things or seeing good things, because it's not all bad. Just because they're going through that, it doesn't mean that they're freaking broken. And giving them the ability to be able to woo-saw, if you will, it's very difficult. But you have to understand it's very difficult that when you're out and you're working a shift as a law enforcement officer, if it's a 12-hour shift, man, your goal is to get home at the end of the night. It's to go home. That's the goal. It's not to get into things or not to have to do this or that. It's to get home safely to your family. Right. It's the same thing with service members. The only thing that we want to be able to do is what we're told to do, because we're not asked, we're told. We're told to go and do this. We're told to go and do that. And we're going to go and do it. We're going to go and do it successfully. And there are going to be some bad things that are going to happen during that time period, but it doesn't mean that we're broken. And just because I have, generally speaking, PTSD, or I need to speak to a counselor, or get some things off of my chest, doesn't mean that I should have my guns taken away from me.
Right.
I should take my car away from me too. You want to talk about knives? What just happened I think it was in France? No, Australia.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dude goes and jugs a bunch of people. I think he killed 2, to include a child. No guns were involved. Look at the number of cases, overseas in Europe and all, where it's knife violence. We're going to take away knives too. Veterans carry knives.
Well, that's what I was meaning before. Like, in the earlier part of this conversation when I was talking about it, I feel like we're focused on the wrong thing. I feel like we have been for the past decade or so, and it's always been that way. I feel like, but like, really, obviously, like you're saying, like that, you take away all the guns, like there's going to be something else that fills that void.
Sure.
And I feel like, especially taking away from people that may or may not have the training to use it, I feel like it's not the root of the issue. But that's not the thing that's going to get the headlines. That's not the thing that's going to get the people moving and
it's not.
Emotional and all that kind of stuff. But like you said, it's cases like that, or like in in France, another place like that where they have been you've had awful
stabbing incident. I think they had one in London that made the news a while back. Somebody went on a stabbing spree.
It's not uncommon,
right?
And people have to understand that just because you're diagnosed with PTSD doesn't mean that you want to hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Those people, not just veterans, but anybody that wants to hurt themselves is going to do it with whatever. If their guns are taken away from them, they're going to find another way. It's part of that psychological process that happens with that in self-harm.
And I feel like that should be the thing that we're focusing on, is the psychological aspect of it and those people and taking care of those people. But then it's like you said before, like that's expensive and it doesn't,
Well, mental health in general,
yeah.
I mean, have really underfunded in this country. And look, as a stalwart conservative, probably one of the biggest mistakes that were made during the Reagan years was defunding a lot of mental health in this country. Of course, you don't know how things are going to play out over time. And it kind of goes back to, you make policy decisions. You're at a governmental level, and you're looking at vast amounts of data, and you're kind of gauging what the public wants and where we want to spend money and where we don't want to spend money. And I guess at the time it was the idea that the federal government's is getting out of the mental health business. We're going to send that back to the states. And unfortunately, for a lot of states, they don't have money to maintain these things at all. They don't. They got barely enough. Right now, I mean, I can't tell you how much money that comes from the federal government that supplements Louisiana's budget.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
If that money went away, state would probably go bankrupt.
Well,
I mean, it's
and
just
look,
what it is.
So Louisiana has the highest number of veterans per capita than any other state in the country.
Really?
Really? Wow, I didn't know that.
And so why isn't there the funding? I don't know. Maybe there is. Right. I mean, I can tell you this, and you can reach out to me. That'd be cool. I don't know who the new VA, director of VA or for the state is, or never heard from the last one we had, Secretary of Veterans Affairs. I don't know. You never hear anything from these people. I don't know what's going on. There is no communications process. I can't tell you if you were a veteran, other than going to the VA, what resources that we have in order to take care of our own.
Or how long you're going to have to wait for help.
Exactly. And I'm going to tell you, you can't, if you put a tourniquet on your arm, you got a gunshot wound to your arm, you put a tourniquet on there, it's to stop the bleeding, right? Okay, it's to keep you alive, all right? You're carrying that, all of a sudden you have this wound and you put this on there and it stops the bleeding, but if you take it off, what happens? It starts bleeding again. Putting a tourniquet on our veterans and mental health,
It's a temporary solution.
It's a temporary solution. And you can't, a reasonable person, a prudent person knows that when you have all of these men and women that are coming back, and you also have, local men and women who are in law enforcement and fire and EMS and all those things as well, okay, that see things on the daily. You can't just arbitrarily say, oh, we got a problem now.
Yeah.
This should have been taken care of. It started to be taken care of, before, like you said.
And a lot of criticism that Veterans Administration is just not, we're not doing a very good job of taking care of our veterans.
Well,
it's been going on a long time.
And look, I'm not going to sit here and say whether I'm for or against Trump, but, in the Trump years, there were a lot of VA hospitals that were either temporarily shut down or, shut down. People were fired, people gotten rid of because veterans are laying in their own poo and all and freaking dying and these hospitals not being taken care of. During that administration, we saw a lot of changes and, a lot of positive changes. And that's not been the focus of the current administration, in taking care of these.
Because
you got a lot of things else going on.
As I'm saying, it's the allocation of taxpayer dollars to all of these various things that make up society, and where we're going to spend money and where we're not going to spend money. And so that's where my problem comes in. I mentioned it on last episode about how the backlog of fixing bridges that are, in this country, but yet we're spending billions and sending it overseas in this war that we're fighting, proxy war, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And couldn't we take $30 billion and put that toward mental health? Would that help? Maybe it could. But that's what I'm saying. It's where their desire is to spend public resources. And we talk about it. At the end of the day, these soldiers go out there, they're told what they have to go do, could care less what happens to them when they come back, because there is a toll on the human mind. When you go into combat, it takes a toll on the human mind, just what it is. You're never going to come back the same.
Yeah.
You can look, I've known guys that I grew up with, and they were jovial and happy people, and they got back and they were changed. They were different. Some had a lot of problems. And it's a tragedy of what we've done as a country. And I blame the political decisions that this country has made over the last 50 years of going around and sending these soldiers out into environments and really, we got our youth. You expended your youth, your energy, your all your good stuff that was a part of you before you did all that. And you've gotten back, and now, wash my hands of you. I'm done. Because you know what? There's another young body we're going to send right after him. Because there's a ton of people willing to lift up their hand and go do this. There's always a ready supply of it.
Right.
Recruiting is down right now, by the way.
I've heard that. They're having some problems with trying to get...
When you leave a Middle Eastern country and a bunch of Marines and sailors and Air Force and Army people get killed, it's really hard for the American public to say, "Yeah, I want to go and be a part of that."
Yeah.
I would tell you where some of that money's going. You're talking about it's going to the illegal immigrants that are coming in and housing and medical and all of those things that are supposed to be going to my brothers and sisters are actually going to them. So, there's that money's being spent for sure, and we see where it's going.
I want to go there. How many veterans are in America today, roughly?
That's a very good question.
It's about 18 million.
18 million. That's a lot of people, right?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
What is the budget of the VA?
I don't know.
Okay, the budget, they are requesting this year for fiscal 2025, $369.3 billion, which is a 9.8 increase above the 2024.
Yep.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And does it say what it's being used for?
I did have,
because I don't want to throw out the numbers of 18 million and then the 300 something billion.
Yeah, that's
right?
not fair. Yeah.
Because if you go to New Orleans, brand new VA hospital down there, it is phenomenal. It is exceptional. I had the ability just before it was finished. On behalf of one of our local politicians here to go and tour the facility.
Wow.
And then have been back since. I even took my wife over there. My wife is a stage 3 colon cancer survivor.
There you go.
And we were at UMC for part of that treatment. And so I was like, you know what? We're going to go for a walk. This is on a chemo day. And, we went for a walk, and I took her over to the VA hospital just to show her the difference.
Yeah.
And, before we even broke through the door, we were being, told hello and asked, how you were doing and or how we were doing. And, walked in, and there was just this beautiful human being sitting there, that said, hey, baby, what are you looking for? Where are you going? And, I told her, I said, do you need to see my ID? She goes, no, it's okay. Go ahead.
Right.
I felt love. I mean, I really did. And my wife was able to see that. And she didn't have any experience with me in my military career.
Right.
But for her as a civilian to be able to see that, it was very, very cool. So some of those monies.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing that I can find in such short notice is $135.25 billion in non-defense discretionary funding and $172.5 billion in mandatory funding.
Okay.
I like the way they're classifying those.
Yeah.
I like that. And look, I'm gonna be devil's advocate here. I would say that a large percentage of those monies, and I could be wrong, but a large percentage of those monies allocated, directed, are going to go to servicing our men and women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna say that. Okay. Because I know, and in the our facilities here are great. I think that we do a great job, within our state. There are long wait times. There are a lot of veterans, though.
Yeah.
Okay. How many of those 18 million live in Louisiana?
Right.
Okay.
Especially if we're the highest per capita.
So,
well, if you think about 18 million is what, about 7% of the population. So if you just kind of averaged it, 7% of the Louisiana population, just for roughly, I mean, but you said it was Louisiana has the largest population of veterans of any state,
right, per capita. And I'm going to tell you. Let me tell you my experience going into the VA when I retired. So you don't talk about things, right? And then you retire, and then you talk about things.
Oh, right.
Right. Because at some point it needs to come out.
Yeah.
Right? You need to heal. Right?
My brother is a paramedic, and he's been a paramedic for probably working on 5 or 6 years now, and that's a big thing. His branch kind of talks about a lot. Is like, there's obviously in the moment you gotta keep on running and gunning. You gotta keep. There's like a job to be done. There's a person to be healed and a place to go. But then there's checks and balances in place to set you out of service for a minute, to just process,
to
for
reset,
a moment.
yeah.
And then of course mental health days where you can really just go to some counselors and stuff, because you see some stuff that you can't go back, or someone dies on you and you can't really go back from that, and it's like it's hard to just reconcile sometimes. So yeah,
and they see that every day.
Yeah, right.
And I will tell you that from my experience locally, that is a new change.
Yeah.
Within the last, I wouldn't even say 10 years, maybe 6.
Okay.
Where it's really, there's been a focus on a lot, especially EMS.
Yeah,
I mean, they deal with a lot of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was actually talking to, we had the situation of the 4-year-old that shot himself.
Mm.
I talked to the paramedic that was on scene for that.
Yeah.
You don't come back from that.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
And all. So, and I would tell you, so he was in the Air Force. All right. TACP guy, super cool guy, and decided, he'd gone and as a paramedic. He was on scene. He's dealing with the child. Wasn't able to talk about it until he and I started talking about it. And when I first met the guy, he was really reserved and all, and we do that, right?
Yeah,
just in general. And he started opening up, started talking about it. And my perception was that was the first time he'd been able to talk about it.
Yeah.
But so going back to the VA thing is that, so I go in and, I meet with my first counselor, and they were like, "Hey, tell me about you." Mm-hmm. I'm like, "No, you tell me about you, because I want to know what your background is."
Yeah.
And I went through several, and I'm not kicking the VA at all. That, they're very, very respectful, very well educated people. Psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, a lot of great people within that organization.
Right.
But you got to find the right one for you. Mm-hmm. And for me personally, sitting down, you and I just met. There's some things I'm not going to tell you, brother.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and it's the same thing, right?
Oh, right, exactly.
And so, for me, I wanted to be able to talk to somebody that actually understood.
Yeah.
And wearing the uniform and having been there, or having worn the uniform, and whether you deployed or not, I really don't care.
Right.
I ended up with a guy, retired colonel, Air Force guy, that was his job in the Air Force for 26 years. He got it. He understood. And it wasn't, he was like 5 or 6 on my list, going through, just sitting down and talking to this guy. And just because he was a veteran and because that's what he did in the military, one, it was an aha moment, because it was like, wait, what? You're a psychiatrist in the military? I didn't know those things, man. But but moving forward, it's like, man, this guy gets it. And I didn't delve in his background. I didn't ask him about combat. I didn't ask him about any of that stuff. It was cool. And so there are a lot of veterans that go and they meet people, and it could be civilian counselors as well. not just the VA, but they don't know that person. And it's very difficult. And we have to, you think about yourself in communicating. There are things, again, that we're not going to share with just a random person,
Right.
I
have the fortune of talking with a lot of people in our community, and I do. I make videos, and usually it's about like testimonials from people. And one thing I've noticed specifically from talking with people and being in those moments is a lot of times I don't know them, don't know their background, I don't know who they are, and I want to capture them on camera in the most natural, authentic way I can. Yeah. And so I try to make it seem like a conversation, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback from people that have opened up and said some things, because I feel like I was able to make it, even though there's a camera involved, there's some lights and things, but make it a safe space where they can just talk about themselves and share a story that they're willing to share with me. But it's also, I've noticed, like, just being able to be there and share my own experiences and just connect with somebody in that way of being like, hey, here's my mistakes, here's where I messed up, and here's a little bit about myself, and it allows that flow of conversation for them to open up a little bit. And I would imagine, like, that is a very, very basic way of something that happens in a much more intense thing of, like, as a psychiatrist, being able to just, like, be there for somebody and also, I guess, share in an experience in some way where even if you guys don't delve into it, just knowing that person gets it in a way will probably help connect in a whole new way, I can imagine, especially when you're dealing with struggles that I can't even comprehend.
Well, and it's, the proverbial toolbox.
Yeah.
In your case, and I think that's very cool that you're doing that, and commend you for that. If we take life's experiences, and I would train my soldiers, this way, my children, my wife. I don't train my wife, but
right. Yeah.
I was fixing to say I've experienced it as your friend.
Yeah. So it's, you take experience, skills, experience, and knowledge don't just come from books,
right?
Or being in combat, or getting into an argument with somebody at Walmart or something in a parking lot. But going through those life experiences, and it doesn't necessarily put you on the same playing field, okay? But there's such words as empathy, and sympathy, and understanding. I cannot understand what it's like to lose a mother.
Right.
My mother's still alive.
Right.
Okay. I can tell you this: my father passed away. I can understand that. Yeah. Right. And I think there's a huge difference when your mom and your dad dying. We're a little closer with our moms. Right. But the having an understanding just in that, and if you're talking to somebody about a death in the family, when we take our own experiences and we take that and parlay that in with them to let them know, hey, I may not fully understand what you're going through, or what you've been going through, or what you may go through, because there are different stages. And especially in the loss of somebody, or in combat, stuff like that. Yeah. There's sadness, and then there's anger, and you go through all these things. I had those same emotions, with going through, the last 2 years of cancer with my wife, as her sole caregiver. Yeah. I mean, it really, I'm going to tell you.
Messes you up.
It messes you up. However, it taught me so much, and especially when we live in a community where cancer is so prevalent. We've got a road called Cancer Alley, but it's those things that we capture and that are applicable. And we're talking on the veteran side of the house. It's applicable in those situations as well. Look, I wasn't in the Marine Corps. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't in the Navy. I don't know, the things that they do and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I do, but I don't, right? But a Marine infantryman, I'm an Army infantryman, I know what they go through. I know what they had to do. We get, there's an end point to that, right? And then we take that skill set and then we go and we use it. And so just because I don't know, the Marine side of things, haven't lived as a Marine, I can still sympathize and empathize with a fellow Marine.
To kind of piggyback on what you're talking about, I don't have any children of my own, but I've had I don't even know how you say this. I've had a lot of discussions with mothers that have lost children.
Yes.
Whether it be through drug-related situations or through health problems or random accidents that happened. And you want to talk about like a pain that I don't think I will ever fully comprehend is a mother that has lost a son. Because I know my mom loves me so much. She's my number one fan of everything that I do.
Yeah.
And
it's
so,
the hair.
Oh well,
it's the hair. Yeah.
and so I know the love that my mom has in her heart for me because she makes it so evident.
Yeah.
And then to be able to talk to some of these ladies that have lost their sons and just for them to find it hard to put into words that feeling and to just be there with them and know that I can never fully understand, but I can empathize with the hurt that you're going through because I can only imagine that void in your life now is like it's unreal. And I've never experienced something like that ever in my life of just being able to sit there with this person and just be there with them and just be able to talk with them. It has taught me a lot about myself and about, also appreciating the people in my life that I feel like they know that I love them, but to be able to just physically, or to be able to like just actually say, word to word, face to face that I love you and I'm here for you, it really brought that to the forefront that I maybe not do that as much as I should. And, so anyways, just.
So you encapsulate that.
Right.
And then with what you're doing.
Yeah.
There, unfortunately, will probably be another situation like that.
Of course.
That you'll be in where you're, based on the experience that you had previously with a mother that lost a child, now you can better understand. You can't totally understand. No. You never will be able to because you're not a mom and never will be, right? But let's talk about veterans' moms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so just kind of keeping it in this, it's the same thing. Listen, if I were to lose my children, I can't even tell you what would happen. I mean, I would be completely devastated.
Right.
And God has blessed me above and beyond with my children. God has blessed me above and beyond with my brothers and sisters, and not just my brothers and sisters on the military side, but also you guys, and as a community, we lose that. And I think that we get caught up in our own little bubble. We live in places where we want to make it very easy to go and do and come back and all that kind of stuff. And we're not situationally aware of the other problems that are going on.
Yeah.
And then when all of a sudden we've got that situation thrust upon us. Yeah. We don't know how to handle it. We don't know what to do. And in most cases, what you're doing, just sitting there listening to that person and that comfort that you're giving is much more than just saying, well, you should take a bunch of medicine, take some opioids and you'll be good to go, or some Motrin 800, some ibuprofen 800 milligram, which is the Army cure-all, and you're going to be fine. It's, actually taking the time to be with that individual and just let them open up.
Right. Let them know that they have somebody that's on their side as well. Yeah, is a big deal. And absolutely. Especially, like I said, especially in your field and with those kind of people, I feel like, especially I can only imagine coming back home from experiencing some of the stuff that people veterans have experienced, and then to feel like that community of people that probably fully understand has gotten a lot smaller, or they're no longer a part of. They got a lot of people around them that are all civilians that probably just don't fully comprehend what's going on, and just to have someone there to just be like, hey, like I got it. I understand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a simple thank you.
Yep. But the place that I have set up has a couch, and so people kind of have a joke now that it's the couch. So like when they go into my office, to go into that space, they're like, "Oh, it's the couch," and to be able to sit there. And usually, I try to make it as comfortable as I can, because I know that like I said, it can be a vulnerable time, and I don't want people to feel uncomfortable.
And you know what, you understand this, that comfortability, it doesn't come from the couch.
Oh, right. It
comes from you.
Mm-hmm.
I can look at you, man,
right.
And I can tell, there's something about you that, it would be very easy to like you and to be able to open up to you.
Thank you.
And that, where that comes from?
What's that?
Number one, it comes from God. Okay.
All right.
But it also comes from your mom.
Right.
That love that, that transcends from your mom to you. Right. You're giving that to other people, and that's what we have to do, and that's one of the things that we've lost.
Right.
But you see, we also, in our conversations, I like something you said, with your wife being survivor of cancer and stuff, and you learn so much about yourself.
Yeah.
You also learn something about somebody else too.
Yeah.
Your wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Miranda and I have kind of gone, that's one of the things that kind of connected us. It seemed like at the same time we were both kind of going through all of this, and it helped connect us on a level that we learned a lot. We need to learn more about each other in this country and have more empathy. First off, obviously, for our veterans, because that's what this show is about, is looking after the men and women that protect us and give us the freedom to say and do what we want within reason, within the laws of the country, and just each other. We really got to figure that out. You and I have connected really since the first day we met.
We have.
And had a fantastic connection because we both realized things in life. I don't submit myself to everybody's leadership. Sometimes I have to submit myself to their authority, whether I like it or not.
Sure.
But I've submitted myself to some of your leadership and your skills and what you have to offer as a friend and brother.
Yeah.
And I think we need to concentrate on that a little bit.
Likewise.
And help the people around us more. And if we can spend, $500 billion in the Ukraine, which I think some of that's necessary, why can't we spend more of that taking care of the people around us and opening up the VA a little bit more so there's not such a wait?
Yeah.
Put some more people in play that can connect with people other than just, and there's some great people at the VA, but there's also some people that don't get it, that are just trying to figure things. Let's put some more people in play to help.
Yeah.
Let's take care of our people and find purpose and help them find purpose. There's some great organizations out there trying to help wounded veterans and veterans alike find jobs, find this, find that.
There are.
And we need to concentrate on that. We need to really concentrate on that.
And that's first off, you're absolutely right. I mean, we kicked it off, when we first met.
But it's like, not to interrupt you, it's like you said, we didn't go through exactly the same thing, but we had enough similarities.
Mm-hmm. You can empathize with each other.
Yeah.
Well, and I would, real world, real time fact. We didn't talk for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have anything to do with me and you.
Right.
It had to do with me shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say shutting down, I'm going back to, you don't say that there's any problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what was institutionalized in my brain. Okay.
But some fat guy
when
kept
you're
plugging along.
Yeah, right.
Kept trying to get
but when you're a person,
mm-hmm.
the person that you love, that that you're on this earth to be with,
right,
is diagnosed with something that can potentially kill her or him, it hits you like a ton of bricks,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna tell you, Erica's resilient as hell, and she's a warrior, she's a fighter, and to have experienced what I experienced with her being that care provider, it was very difficult. And I will tell you, in those phases I was talking about with, sadness and anger and all
Yeah.
of that, part of it for me too was I didn't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to talk to anybody about it because I don't want you to feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
Because I would get, I'm so sorry your wife's got cancer.
Right.
Look, it's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
It's about her, And then I've had a couple of people tell me what I need to do. They had gone through some similar stuff, and it's like, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, and you need to make sure she's eating and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, bruh,
Right.
I know these things,
Trust me, yeah.
but you got to understand it's not the same for everybody. And she was diagnosed on the same day as a friend of ours, who became a friend of ours,
Mm-hmm.
who has since passed away.
Mm.
Okay. Same day, same cancer, colon cancer. You guys need to get checked. I don't care how old you are.
Yeah.
You especially need to get checked. But it goes back to, the state of being a veteran and how, we do deal with things. Mm-hmm. And, I'm very good. Erica will tell you I'm very good at stuffing things because that's the way that I was raised in the military. You stuff it and then you move on.
Right.
And there is a time and place for all of that, and it's just now, today, that I'm able to say, I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't want to talk about it. You know, all I wanted to do was take care of her. Mm-hmm. And if I talked about it, or if I heard a song that we heard going down to New Orleans for chemo or whatever, something that would keep me up on it.
Yeah.
It's like, I just don't want to, not that I didn't want to deal with her, or deal with that situation. It was, not wanting it to be there. It's kind of like my dogs, man. If they do something bad, they won't look at me because they think that I can't see them if they, if they don't look at me. Right.
Yeah.
And, I was kind of like that. It's like, if I don't look at it, then it's not real.
Yeah. I was going to say that.
But yet it's real.
I was going to say that, like, it's just talking about it makes it feel more real than it actually is.
But you see, I knew that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't let you go very long without a phone call or, hey, what can I do or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. I can only just continue to let you know somebody's there for you. Yeah. But I'm not going to push it. No. And when you were ready, my brother was there, and we hugged, and we kept on going.
It kept on going. And I will tell you, for me, Stoney, I knew that. Mm-hmm. I knew that you were there. I knew that you and Miranda were there. Mm-hmm. And I knew, that there were other people that were there.
Sure. But and I want to say, like, those other people that were telling you what to do, their heart was probably in the right place, but maybe they don't know.
People have, some people are just, what do you say to someone that's facing tragedy?
Yes.
Because I think no one goes in, some people just don't have the right words, know, and so they say things that are kind of like canned responses to certain things.
And like, I'm so sorry your wife has cancer. What else can you say?
Right. It's
a bad thing.
That hits the nail on the head right there. And exactly what you just said as to why veterans have a hard time going and talking about things. Okay. And to the people that they talk to. And again, I don't care if it's the VA. What's our state doing? And I'm not saying that the state's not doing anything. I just don't know. I'm not educated on that. If we know that there is a waiting time to be seen on one side, why isn't there a connection where we can get this person in to be seen by somebody else?
Right.
Because, once a soldier, always a soldier. Once a Marine, always a Marine, all that kind of good stuff, right? But you enter the civilian world, okay? I'm a soldier for life. That's our thing. Once a soldier, always a soldier, right? But I'm in the civilian world now. I'm not in the military anymore. And I may be a soldier by title, whatever, and I'd have a rank or whatever, and that's super cool, whatever. But I'm in the civilian world now. So, you've got all these men and women that have re-entered the civilian world, which is very difficult, you know, in itself.
Now think about it.
That adds to the problem.
You go into the military. What does the military teach you to do?
Shoot.
To kill people.
That's
the nature
exactly
of
what it is.
that's the nature of the job.
Right.
Yes.
Is to go. There's a chance I'm going to be entering into a conflict, and my job is to kill the enemy. Is to destroy the enemy. That's it.
Yep.
Right.
Well, there's not a whole lot of that when you come back to the civilian world.
No.
Because one, you've got to completely change the mind of a person
Yeah.
to do that. And I said, there's only about 1% of the population are natural born killers. Everybody that has to do that is going to have some psychological impact.
Yep.
Whether it's in the military, law enforcement, even people that are defending their own lives in their own home.
Yep.
If they have to take someone's life in an act of self-defense, there are psychological consequences.
And they're changed forever.
They're changed forever.
And that's one of the things when I do instruct people in firearm usage and things like that is what do you think it really entails to take a human life? Oh, if somebody comes, I'll just pull my gun and shoot him. Really? Have you actually thought this? Yeah, you know, and you have to be able to comprehend that that's like being a soldier is forever. Law enforcement is forever. Taking a human life is going to be with you forever. No matter how tough you think you are, no matter what even if it was in self-defense of your family, your wife, and your kids, you're still going to carry that burden forever.
The military is even worse.
And the military takes it on to another.
Because the military, you're going in with the
intent.
expressed desire. The intent is to take life.
Yes.
Well, it's to
And,
win.
you know, in law enforcement, nobody goes to work. No policeman ever wakes up and go, and I hope that I kill somebody.
Right.
That just doesn't
That's just
exist.
crazy. Yeah.
But in the military world, yes,
Yeah.
we're going in to take out this enemy because our government has deemed these people to be.
They said we want that hill, so we got to go get that.
We got to
hill.
go do what we got to do.
Yep.
So it's a whole different ball
It's a whole
game.
different. It's a whole different thing, and you know, there are a lot of people that don't understand. There's a lot of people that are not going to ever understand that, and that's okay.
It is.
It's totally fine. Okay, but there has to be a better system in place. You know, to be able to take care of that.
Right.
All right, and you know, and I pause there because I almost said fix. You're never going to fix it.
Nope.
You're not.
You're
broken.
never going to fix it.
If you're not broken,
But
you
you're
don't
not
need
broken.
to fix it.
You don't need to be fixed.
That's right.
You know, going and taking the life of a human being, we are not designed. We were not put on this earth to do that.
Right.
Nope.
But we've been doing it
For a long time.
since we've been on the earth.
Yep.
You know, and it's gonna continue to happen.
Since the fourth person on the planet, Cain, right?
And you can be that tactical, you know, guy that you're talking about. That, you know, I'm just gonna show them, you know, whatever. I hope you're having a good day, because if you're not having a good day, which means that you've been training and you've been doing all the things that you need to do to survive and be a sheepdog and not a sheep, because that wolf is going to kill you.
Yep.
Okay. And so, I mean, I hear and I see it all the time, and it drives me crazy, because and I know some really good guys that are really good shooters and train and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to tell you what, there were 2 Navy SEALs that died a couple months ago, okay? Some of the best, well-trained dudes in the world. I got nothing but mad respect for these cats, okay? If you're familiar with the story or not, they're boarding a ship. One of the SEALs falls into the water. His partner jumps in to try to save him. They both go under, never seen again, okay? Tier 1, bad to the bone dudes, okay? Some of the highest trained guys in the world, all right, who spend more time in the water than anybody else, drowned, okay? And you don't know all the circumstances. We never will know all the circumstances of that story, but that's what the American people were told. Even warriors like that die. Okay, who are going to shoot more and do more than Joe Snuffy on the street ever will. But if you don't think that the bad guys that are out there, those wolves, aren't training, go to your local gun range and see what's going on. And I know you've seen it. I know you've seen it too, okay? These guys are out there shooting. And the old adage of, you know, some stupid stuff that's said about the way people shoot and all this kind of stuff and drive-bys and all of that, and you better check yourself and come back to reality, because there are people training, you know, and especially with constitutional carry coming up, you know, and that's July 4th for anybody in Louisiana. And check your local state's constitutional carry laws. You know, man, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen come July 4th.
Yep.
You know, with all that.
Well, maybe what I like.
I'm worried.
I'm a little worried too, but maybe we could do another show getting closer to that. If everybody likes, maybe on the constitutional carry, have a little bit more information, but maybe offer some training information too on what people can do, maybe where they could go, some things that they can do, and offer some educational value to the show also.
We can do that, and even before that, you know, I would tell, you know, if you're hearing this, I would recommend, there's only a few people that I trust on the intro webs, okay, when it comes to training and valuable information. If you will take the time to go and check out the men over at GBRS Group, phenomenal group of guys doing some amazing things. Have done some absolutely amazing things in the military career. I have actually changed some of my shooting ways because of them, and I appreciate them for that. You know, Mike Jones over at Grand Thumb. Check out Mike. You know, he does some really silly stuff sometimes, but he does some really cool stuff. I got mad respect for him. Former Air Force guy, GBRS guys, SEAL guys, and then you know, I would say too, from a legal perspective, you know, check out Coleon Noor. You know, I think we'll talk about Coleon. Yeah, I love Coleon. If you ever,
well, he's a 2A attorney, is what he does. So yeah,
I really want to meet you, dude, because I think you're awesome.
I'd love to have him on the show.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Great guy. But he, you know, and I think that he brings so much to the 2A community. And, you know, if you will go and listen to him and watch these guys, you know. Doesn't mean you have to believe everything that they tell you or take advantage of some of the training stuff that they have or whatever, but there is, you know, there's some skill sets that they have that transcend to you as a soon-to-be constitutional carrier, okay, that could save your life. And I think that those guys do an amazing job with that. You know, if you go look at Mike Glover, over at Mike Glover Actual or at Fieldcraft Survival. There's a lot of great knowledge. I actually purchased a handgun, the SigPeak 365 X Macro, because of Mike, and he was part of my decisive decision making process with that, and I appreciate him for that. But if you go to those specific places, you know, in the meantime, check those out, because there's some very valuable information that's there that you can go ahead and start working on. Because I think the biggest thing on that side of the house is we've got to get more training. You've got to train.
Because in any situation, you're going to fall back to your training.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and if you have no training, they're going to take it away from you and shoot you with your own weapon.
Oh, and all adage in the military is you train as you fight.
Or your knife. If I know a couple of guys that are knife fighters that are amazing. But if it's always going to fall back to your training, self-defense, training, situational awareness, and many things that encompass keeping you and your family safe in this world.
Sure. Absolutely. And I will tell you that our local law enforcement is also doing some great things, specifically on the women's side of the house, with some of their self-defense courses. And, I tipped my hat to them. We've got a great new chief at that particular department, and is doing some great things within the community, and as well as other communities within our great state. But we have to go out and become more knowledgeable, and we've got to seek those resources that we can trust and that we can go to, because there's a lot of things that you can do sitting in the comfort of your own home that you don't have to spend a dime on. I've always told you that, my thing is that time is your most valuable asset. Make the time. Just make the time.
Well, I tell you what, I want to, before we wrap this episode up, there's a couple of things I wanted to mention earlier about just some statistics on veterans and some of the challenges. I was looking at a national report that's put out dealing with this, and in 2020, 6,146 veterans took their own lives. In 2021, that jumped to 6,392. So it's going up. I don't know what the numbers for 2022 and 2023 are. I'm sure these reports, there's always looking at data. They have to kind of give controls and everything else. So I think we need to do a little bit better on helping our veterans in this country.
Yep.
And more money needs to be put toward this. It's just unacceptable.
Yep.
It is, and I will tell you that I hate statistics because statistics are numbers that can be skewed. When we look at data like that, my question is, okay, so in
2021, right now you're dealing with COVID.
Okay.
That probably contributed.
Okay. You've got a lot of people also coming out of the box, in various areas, not just Iraq, Afghanistan, and all that kind of good stuff. But you do have COVID. Of that number, I don't think that number is actually correct, because a lot of people die on the daily, and those numbers are just what were reported.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And we talked about this the other day too. The number 22. That when I remember, I think it was in 2013, 2014. I retired in 15. The number 22 became this huge, thing, and it was the 22 challenge because 22 veterans were in their lives, every day. That number's crap. Okay. It is, it's an arbitrary number. It's not correct. It is a number that we people jumped on, made a challenge out of it, doing 22 push-ups for veterans. And that's super cool, and it brings awareness and all of that. But just to have an arbitrary number out there, I think it's wrong, and it's very misleading. And I think if we look at it across the board, it's going to be higher than that.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And in some cases, it's going to be lower than that. And in most cases, it should be lower than that, And that goes back to what are we doing
right
from the government down, to
address this issue.
Right. Address the issue.
I think we've had a good episode. We've had a great episode. Being able to, I think we started heavy talking about some pretty scary stuff and things that are going to be changing. But I think by the time we rounded this thing out, I think I'm looking at things a little differently, and I would wager that if there's veterans out in your life, if there's people out there in your life, if there's people in law enforcement or medical services or whatever, I mean, just thank them and be there for them and just like just know that they're probably going through something that you probably don't fully understand on the regular basis. And I want to thank you, William, for being here. This was a great episode, I feel
Thank
like,
you.
and it was awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But we have a few different ways for people to get in contact with us. We have a Facebook page /Retrospect Pod where you can give us your short form answers and just kind of give us any type of suggestions you want to talk about things, or your ideas for what's going to be coming up in the next few episodes, because we got some good ones coming up. And we also have an email address, getoffendedtogether@gmail.com, where you can send those long form responses or just want to let us know your thoughts and feelings. I feel like this is one of those episodes where people are going to have some feelings on it and they want to talk about it. So just know that's there for you guys. But anyways, until next week's episode, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
Go train.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and participating in this subject. You're the best. Peace.